Are you looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football and basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select two or more players, pick more or less on their projections for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the PrizePicks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/bluewire and use code BLUEWIRE. That's code BLUEWIRE at prizepicks.com/bluewire for a first deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Mavs Moneyball After Dark. This is Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe joining you for the first official podcast of the preseason as we are recording on the night of Monday, September 26th. It's about 9:30, and we're both ignoring the Cowboys game. How are you, Josh?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, Kirk, just for fun, Kirk messaged me and was like, hey, do you want to do this at halftime? Like, trying to work around the game. And I was like, dude, I'm a dead inside Cowboys fan. We can record this whenever you want. So.
Yeah. Well, and we had a really kind of, the way our site works, like we're all kind of like adults that have day jobs and we cannot go to media day. And so the few people that do go to media day, I bet like Nick Angstad of Locked On Mavs, he's full-time Locked On. His co-host Isaac, I don't think does basketball. Like, I think Isaac has a day job, so it's like he's probably taking off work to go to this. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't go to media day. And so like we rely on like these other people to sort of do the grunt work for us.
Yeah.
And I missed just a whole bunch, so I've been kind of catching up since about 3 or 4 o'clock. Seems like it was I don't know, kind of a not like a boring media day, but there was a few surprises. But it seemed like it was mostly like just kind of business as usual, and guys seemed to be sort of like ready to get back and playing basketball. What were the things that really that jumped out to you from what we've been looking at over the past few hours?
Yeah, I guess like you said, it was a pretty uneventful overall media day, which is, that's kind of how
I prefer that.
Yeah. And there, I think the big thing we talked about in the pre-show, I mean, it has to be probably the Christian Wood coming off the bench, starting thing. Jason Kidd actually confirmed it after, we kind of got Tim Cato reported in The Athletic that they were leaning towards bringing him off the bench, and everyone was kind of like, okay. And then Kidd just flat out was like, yes, this is what's happening. So that was kind of interesting. And then, of course, Christian Wood got to talk about it, and then we had to do the whole fun, let's interpret people's body language and cadence and smile when someone says something, because Wood kind of made an off the cuff comment that
Wood seemed like he knew, and he said he didn't know
until just then, and he laughed. And so, yeah.
Right.
You got the typical reaction of people who took it 100% earnestly and were what's wrong with
I read it, and I can't lie. Like, I took it earnestly because then I saw like 45 minutes later he tweeted LOL. And like when you put all those pieces together, he's clearly fucking with everybody. And I kind of low key appreciate that. Like, that's funny. Like, it's annoying because it makes me look like an ass, but like good content.
Yeah, the reaction to the LOL tweet, I was like, man, it's preseason, and like I'm already wanting to log off forever.
Well,
we haven't even played a preseason game.
We have real like sports fan, KP really fucked with us. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like it's just like years of his nonsense makes me overread into anything. And so it's just really easy. But I will say it's just like, I think like the casual sort of easygoing nature of what this media day was, like it gives me a real nice, like I feel like I'm sort of at peace with where the Mavs are heading into the season. Like they've identified their own problems. Like, you know, there's we're going to figure out this stuff with Wood and McGee sooner rather than later, because it's just going to matter on the court. You know, they can promise McGee everything under the sun, but his contract is guaranteed. He's getting paid money. And if the Mavericks need him to come off the bench instead of Wood, or if they need to start them both together, then that's what they're going to do.
Yeah. And it's just, you know, I understand why some fans are like upset that Wood isn't starting. And I get it. You know, he's the shiny new toy, and you want to see them play as much as possible. Jason Terry didn't even start half of his games. I know that seems stupid to invoke like one of the greatest.
No,
Mavericks
one day
ever,
he'll
but
have his jersey retired.
yeah, I know. And, you know, comparing him to Christian Wood, who might not even
that's
be on
fine.
the team. But, you know, like he could still play 30 minutes. He could still close games. And at that point, it's like, you know, does it really matter? And honestly, like on the court, it doesn't matter. Like they'll be fine being able to manage, you know, that path and making sure McGee plays his 10 to 15 minutes and making sure, you know, Wood is on the floor when he needs to be, if he performs up to their expectations. And also, you know, Jason Kidd is a defensive first coach with how he kind of runs things. And I'm not, you know, I wouldn't be shocked if he was like, you know, he's got to prove himself. If he wants to play the 5 and start, he has to be a good defender. And, you know, like it or not, his Wood is not a good defender right now, as of right now that we know of. You know, his pass is not a good.
Somebody this athletic, though. Somebody that athletic, he has the tools. It's
right, exactly.
To me, it's more give a shit.
Right. So, you know, he could earn it. Like, man, who knows? The lineup till start last season and the lineup to finish the season last season, I mean, it was crazy. So, you know, it's going to change, and Wood's going to start. You know, McGee could get hurt. You know, things are going to happen. It's a long regular season. So to me, it's just, we got to pick your battles, pace yourself. It'll be fine. The only thing that I like legitimately want to like pay attention to with it is just how they manage the relationship, which is why, you know, his shenanigans, you know, talking about, you know, this is the first time I'm hearing it, you know, the LOL tweet, that's the only time where you're like, okay, you know, are we off to a good start here? Because he did, and like, you know, this isn't me just speculating. I think he did say during his media day time to Callie Kaplan or to the reporters that, like, yeah, the you know, being able to start, you know, that is gonna you know, play into his contract negotiations when he's a free agent this summer. Like, why would? Of course it would. So like that's something they gotta manage. Like, you know, I don't think his, you know, if he gets grumpy about not starting, you know, by January or February, if he's not starting by then, like I really don't think his attitude is going to have a tangible effect on like the on-court product. But they do need to make sure that they're managing him in terms of like, if he has a great season, they're going to want him back. And so I think that's maybe the balancing game that they need to do, is just making sure that they have a good relationship with him, so that if he does have a great season and he blows up in Dallas on this roster playing next to Luka and under Coach Kidd, they need to make sure that they're in a prime position to retain him, because, you know, there'll be nothing worse than like him actually blowing up, having a great season, and then capitalizing on that to get a big deal to start for another team. And the Mavericks kind of left holding the bag. Now that's a long ways away. That's, you know, we're 12 months, you know, away from that scenario. But like, that's the only thing I'm thinking about. Otherwise, like, I think the on-court stuff's going to be fine.
Well, and you know, it's interesting because that leads directly into an element of something that you and I talked about. Jason Kidd said this, and I don't know when Jason Kidd said this. I wish Dwayne Price, who shared this tweet yesterday, shared this quote from Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd on losing Jalen Brunson to the New York Knicks via free agency. Quote, "We wish him luck in New York, but we can't replace him. We're going to have to do it by committee because he brought so much to the table, not just on the court, but off the court." So first, how that obviously relates to what we were just talking about with Wood, in the sense of, when you say something like that out loud, there's a little bit of an acknowledgement of the fact that the Mavericks made a mistake with Brunson. Like, there's just not a question about it. They had the chance to lock him up. They chose not to for the course of flexibility. And instead of gaining flexibility, they actually lost a player and gained nothing in return. So, bottom line, this is Nico's first big mistake is not being able to retain Jalen Brunson, because they could have got him at like 3 for 55. That's what Brunson is saying. I don't know if I believe that, but that is what it is. But what Kid's having to say here is just an acknowledgement of the fact that an area that the Mavericks were really successful last year, ball handlers, they're going to have to figure it out. And I just appreciate the level of non-bullshittery that we get from Kid on this, as opposed to sort of the things we've gotten in the past from Donnie and Mark and, Carlisle to a lesser extent, where it's like, oh, well, it's no big deal that this giant mistake happened. Like, I have a 6-year-old little boy. Nothing makes me madder right now during this parental stage when I'm trying to get him to understand what consequences are. He doesn't really get it. Like, little boys don't deal with like impulse control until they're like 7, 8 years old, which is just driving me crazy. But it's like you walk through the same thing over and over, and at some point it's spelling out, okay, this, like, the thing I did here led to this outcome here. And so by Kid just sort of facing it head on, I feel better that the team actually acknowledges that this is a change. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be for the worse, though it's going to be more difficult. It just means they're going to have to figure out something new. And for the negative me that I always am, there's just something about that really put me in a better headspace as we head into the meat of preseason. What did you think?
Yeah, I appreciated that. It really did. I mean, and that felt like the first acknowledgement that losing Brunson is going to make things more difficult for the 2022-2023 Dallas Mavericks. So, and that's true. Like, even if you have belief in Spencer Dinwiddie, and I think he could probably have a pretty good season, like, they're down a guy and they didn't replace him. It was fun to see. I think it was Kid who said that, to try to fill those gaps, the players that he named 2 players that they're going to try to lean on to, step up and fill some of the gaps there. One of them was one that we assumed, Frank Ntilikina, backup point guard that they've been trying to develop. And then the other name, which is going to make you, I think, either very happy or very mad, I can't figure out which one, is he name dropped Josh Green as someone that can maybe with the ball handler deficit.
Love that you brought this up, because on the one hand, my immediate inclination is to make jokes because the internet is fun and it's about having a good time. It's not arguing, but I have actually forcefully argued rather frequently here that they need to give Josh Green a chance to do something that he's good at. And I just don't think standing in the corner shooting these granny shots that I see on the internet is his forte. Let him get weird with the ball. I don't care if he turns it over. The Mavericks, play fast, do something. The Mavericks have some interesting athletes and can do something. Josh Green is big and he has vision. I don't always agree with some of the choices that he makes, but I'll tell you, the defense sure as shit doesn't see them coming. So, I don't hate this. Frank Ntilikina, different ball, different thing. Frank's had 6 years to play point guard and has not shown that he's good at it. That's a questionable decision making here. But you have been arguing in our Slack to a degree that you don't think it matters. Could you sort of expound on that?
Wait, don't think what matters?
Do you sort of think that, okay, the 10 minutes a game where they need to buy some time, that you're kind of as long as it's not a catastrophic loss, what's the harm, right? Am I misstating?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's because I'm assuming now if the Mavericks don't do this, then it is going to be a bigger problem. But I'm assuming one of Luka and Dinwiddie is going to be on the floor for 90% of the game. Right? Mm-hmm. I have to imagine that, I think sometimes you look at starting lineup and you see Dinwiddie and Luka in the starting lineup and you immediately think, oh my God, they don't have a backup point guard. I think the backup point guard is Dinwiddie in a way. He's going to, I assume that when Luka goes out, he'll stay on. Or vice versa. Maybe Dinwiddie goes out first and Luka stays on. But I think that's going to be the rotation is the first time they make subs, it's going to probably be to get one of Luka or Dinwiddie out, keep the other one on the floor and let the other one kind of run a bench lineup with, THJ and Christian Wood and Maxey. So part of me is like, why are we freaking out so much about like Frank Ntilikina maybe playing like maybe 5 more minutes a game, if that, those, it's not going to add up. Now in the playoffs, when every minute counts, yeah, you're going to feel that. But over the course of an 82 game season, I think they're going to be able to paper over some of those issues. Now, of course, the problem is Luka has pretty consistent about missing about 10, somewhere between 5 to 10 games a season now for the last 3 years, and Dinwiddie is still someone who is now 2 years removed from an ACL tear that they're probably still going to be cautious. They're still going to manage that a little bit. Now, when one of those guys isn't playing, that's when you're really, that's the cause for concern. But if the team is healthy, otherwise, I think they're going to be able to get by with what they have in the regular season, at least. I guess that's what I mean by being okay.
So here's the thing. So actually, in year 3, Luka played 66 of 72 games because that was the COVID shortened season.
Mm-hmm.
I think what the Mavericks are sort of having to bet on is that they're going to get a 70-plus game season out of Luka. That has to be in the mix here. So if Luka's missing 5 to 10 games as opposed to 16 to 20, basically more than close to a quarter of the season, frankly, then all bets are kind of off and things might get a little funky. But if they're hoping that, just because he's a bit of a tank, then they can get away with this. And I see the argument. I don't necessarily like it. But I what I like is not, I'm not a GM. So I can at least see the path here because, one of the things we've talked about repeatedly, and we'll talk about this again as the regular season moves forward. If the Mavericks win totals and where they place in the West and Luka Doncic's MVP campaign are stricken together. If the Mavericks win like 52 games and are like 4th in the West, then Luka's going to be a clear MVP candidate because that means he's going to have played most of the games. I mean, one of the more crazy stats about if you go look at this sort of thing, and I'm getting the numbers wrong, but the Mavericks win well more than the majority of the games that Luka Doncic plays. Full stop. It's just we in 4 years we have some of these instances, COVID, injury, whatever, where he ran out of gas or he, had a bad ankle sprain for a period of, like weeks. And so those things just sort of catch up with you. So I like the optimist in me this early in the season before I see them play a lick of basketball. I'm willing to buy this argument and the bet that the Mavericks are taking.
Yeah. And of course, I don't think it's, by saying, they think that they can get by. I don't, I know you can say what Mark Cuban's going to say about them being able to replace Brunson, but I mean, I still think they would rather have Brunson on this route. Like, I don't think that they're happy that Brunson's not here. Like, I don't think this is their ideal path. They're just kind of making do with the best of a bad situation that they kind of dug themselves into. So I wouldn't say that, I bet you they still want to add another ball handler, another guard. I'm sure that they would love to have like another all-star on the perimeter. And we've talked, I feel like every podcast we've done in the offseason has been they're just biding their time until they can pass this Kristaps trade.
Luka went on television and basically said, we don't need a third guy or a second guy. Let's just go win with these people we have. And, I sort of appreciate that level of fight from Luka. So I don't know
for sure.
It's the point in the preseason where I'm feeling bullish. Nothing silly's happened. And frankly, there's been enough weird stuff from other teams. Like if you followed media day today, like Kyrie Irving was like, I didn't, and this is not, man, this is more, Kyrie basically showed his ass in that he's like, I'm willing to give up $100 million not to get a vaccine, which I'm just like, okay, not sure what you're trying to say there, friend. What he ended up doing was telling the whole NBA that he's not worth the trouble when he did that. Like, that's not a statement on vaccines. That's a statement on like work reliability. Then Kevin Durant got really funky. Like he's yelling at media people online today. The Phoenix Suns, I think we might want to stick a fork in that team, which it's gonna
bad vibes.
Woo, good gravy. Talk about bad vibes. Then there's like the Boston Celtics where the players are like, I cannot, the stink on the Celtics is a rot that everyone is trying to cover up. Like their coach is accused, is like basically getting suspended for things that we've yet to learn the full story. and the players were talking about it like something happened to him.
Yeah, like he was the victim of something.
Like, what are we doing here, friendos? Like, and granted, this is not the kind of, we at Mavs fans have experienced like the uncomfortable nature of dealing with a front office and a back office that has nasty things happen. And, we all wish that stuff couldn't and wouldn't happen because, nobody deserves to go through any sort of awful work situation like that, particularly lower level employees. But I'm saying all this to say that, like, I would much rather have this really boring media day where we're sort of talking about pure basketball, even if it's then like the chicanery that's going around in some of these teams. Like, we've had to do it before, and it's just nice to only be talking about basketball.
Yeah, like I like the funny, goofy training camp stories that are like what's going on with Jimmy Butler's hair instead of like what's going on like with these these issues. And you didn't even mention in your rundown of like weird bad media day vibes, you didn't even mention the Hornets and LaMelo Ball.
Oh my god!
Reaching out to currently arrested for domestic violence, Miles Bridges, hoping that he could rejoin the team in the future.
Maybe going to jail, Miles Bridges. These are not moral statements. These are like factual things on the ground.
He might be in prison in like 3 months, and he's saying, "Oh, well, I contacted him, and I'm hopeful he could rejoin the team." And I'm like, "What are you saying? How do you? I don't even know." Like, it's just, ooh.
It's remarkable. It's
glad we don't cover the Hornets.
Thank goodness, right?
Yeah.
Whew. Well. Okay, so then that leads, like, there's plenty of other media day stuff. We're gonna have some posts up tomorrow. We have a couple of things up right now. Exactly, Jason Kidd kind of started things, and he mentioned that Luka's workload will be light to start the season. I don't believe that at all, but I think that's the thing he's got to say. Then there's the Wood. There's some other sort of fun stuff, but nothing particularly interesting. Then like a thing happened mid-afternoon. And if you're online, which I hope you're not, because being online is a bit insanity inducing. Shams Charania of The Athletic went on some show. What is it here? I wrote about it. I should know this. He went on The Rally, which I don't know what
sounds
that
like
is.
A made up show.
It's something. No, it's on Bally Sports. So it's like a real show here on Bally Sports. I'm clicking on it right now. Yeah. And mention the Mavericks among 4 teams that, Phoenix is looking to trade Crowder out of. Crowder's been throwing a extended fit. I have no other way to say it. Like, he somehow out leveraged Kevin Durant. I know that's because he's an expiring contract, but that doesn't make it any less weird. And is essentially placed himself on the trade block. You sort of have some insight as to why. Can you walk us through it?
Yeah, well, he's on an expiring contract, and if you think about the current Phoenix Suns cap sheet, I mean, they just signed DeAndre Ayton. They matched that offer sheet. Booker's on a huge deal. Paul's on a huge deal. They got Mikal Bridges extension. They got Cam Johnson extension coming up. I mean, they've got their money tied up in a lot of places, and so it makes sense that with Crowder expiring, and they've got Cam Johnson, they've got Mikal Bridges, so they've got some wings already that are young that they want to keep around on the team for a while. It makes sense that the veteran is going to find himself squeezed out. So it's a combination of him wanting to be in a situation where he can meaningfully impact his next contract. He doesn't want to, because it seems like the Suns aren't necessarily going to be itching to get him playing time when they know that he's not going to be on the team with their long-term plans. So it seems like it's about him trying to find a role where he can contribute, play big minutes, so that he can secure another contract. Because the last thing you want as an NBA player going into a contract year is kind of being phased out of a rotation. So they're going to try. It sounds like that's kind of the deal. Interestingly enough, Dallas being on the list, I don't know how much bigger his role. Like, I think he would obviously be a useful piece here because we do not want Dorian Finney-Smith and Reggie Bullock to play 50 minutes a night like they were in the playoffs, it felt like. So he would definitely be a useful piece here. But I don't know if he's looking for a bigger starter level role. I don't know if that's going to be in Dallas. So I don't know.
How old do you think he is?
Well, he was drafted. He was all right. I'm not
No,
going to
yeah,
look it
don't
up.
look at this.
I'm
Just
not looking it
guess.
up, but I'm going to talk you through my process. Okay, so he was a 4-year player, I think, in Marquette, drafted in 2012. So is he 34 or 33? Oh, 32.
So
34,
he's in an interesting spot to where he kind of knows that
Yeah.
given the market for wings, even because he's not a great shooter, he's a streaky shooter.
Very streaky.
He's at this place, and it's an interesting leverage point for him where he could probably sign one more deal that's like a multi-year one.
Right. And this will be his last like legitimate deal before he starts doing the going to good teams on 1 year, like the PJ Tucker thing. But yeah, but like he wouldn't play that, like, you know, like he would be a backup here, like he wouldn't be a starter. So I don't know if Dallas is a legitimate spot or if that's just like a leverage play for his agent. We'll see what happens there.
And I love it. Ooh, receiving touchdown by CeeDee Lamb. Look at that.
I have updates.
Sorry, I bought into the Cowboy Schleck for fantasy football, and it's given me some hope here. Anyways, so I don't know. It's like for comedy's sake, everyone should wish this. Everyone should want Jae Crowder on the Mavericks because I hate Jae Crowder. He is like my first Twitter like basketball writing like player enemy. Like I don't hate him as a person. His game was the genesis of me losing my mind early in my Mavs Moneyball career.
Yes. You and our friend Andy.
He's such a streaky shooter. Like it cannot be properly stated how crazy he is in terms of this sort of thing. So it's fascinating to me. I would be for it because it seems like the Mavericks would have to move on from Powell if they did it. Like that would just be kind of a 1-for-1 straight up deal. I doubt he becomes a Maverick. Let's just be clear here. There's teams that have other things they can offer to sweeten the deal, whatever. But it would be something that I would kind of like because in a game of wings, like if you could get him playing 25 minutes a night instead of Josh Green, like I would feel better about that. I just would at this point. But maybe the Mavericks need Josh Green. Who knows?
Yeah, I think if they did end up pulling off this trade, I think that would be an indictment on the Mavericks organization's confidence level in Josh Green's ability to be a rotation guy in year 3, right? If they made this trade. So we'll see. We'll see,
which would be particularly funny. And here's why. Because the Mavericks in Jae Crowder's 3rd year, just when he was starting to show something with Dallas, he got buried behind Richard Jefferson, played very few minutes, and then ended up in a trade to the Boston Celtics for Rajon Rondo and Dwight Powell. So there's just a lot of hilarious synergy in all this sort of thing. But that's kind of all we got right now. They start training camp tomorrow. We have and Josh will contribute to this at some point just because he's gonna turn on his basketball brain again. We have a ton of stuff in the hopper. Because the way this works with SB Nation, we're not really on the hook until October 1st, just to let you guys behind the curtain. But we're going to be releasing, kind of inching out at least 2 posts a day starting tomorrow. And we're going to be ratcheting up to 3 to 4 to 5 posts a day through the preseason. Mavs Moneyball is going to be a place you want to visit early and often. We're going to be trying to expand our coverage to do some stuff we've not done traditionally. But frankly, we've just grown our staff. We have 25 people writing for us. And it's not, I'm going to try to have some of them on the show here. It's not, we're basically a collective of like-minded fans that want to talk about basketball and turn that stuff into something other than rage on the computer. So I've really liked what our team has turned in so far. We've got just some great pieces from new voices. That's one thing we really try to do is I really look for people that think I'm an idiot because that makes our writing better because it's like, I would rather have disagreement, like about the team we covered than like one unified voice. It's just boring. Basketball's too fun. There's too many different ways to look at it. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what the team does. You and I will be back for, probably preseason games, as embarrassing as that is. And then we'll start kind of our regular season, trudge on. And as much fun as we had basically, mid-January on last year, I'm really hopeful for a more stable season. Is that crazy?
No, that's I would appreciate it.
All right, guys. So come to Mavs Moneyball early and often. Tell your friends about this podcast. Like and subscribe. Do all that wonderful stuff, and we will, be back when we can. Also, be willing if you're willing to join our Spotify lives. I really have fun with these. I love the community we're formed. It's where I found, a lot of people that really from all over the world that just want to talk basketball. And if you're one of these people, I don't know if I join, I would never call into a radio station. I never thought I'd be doing this either. It's not like we're making like dollars for this, but I'd rather talk about it with somebody than A, talk to my wife who would tell me to go to hell, or B, like get in Twitter arguments or Slack board, like message board arguments. It's different when you're talking to another human being. It feels a lot better. So
For sure.
Thanks for listening, and we will be back, I don't know, sometime soon. Everybody have a great week.